Hello, fellow makers, artists, and craftspeople. Today, I should be releasing episode 248 of the podcast, yet I cannot. On May 2nd of this week, we found out through a leaked draft from the Supreme Court that it is every intention of that Supreme Court to overrule Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade, which was decided on January 22nd, 1973, is the decision that gave everybody with a uterus full, legal, and safe access to all forms of reproductive health care. The last and only time I have made a statement rather than releasing an episode was on June 4th, 2020, in solidarity for the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement after the murder of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer. Since that time, we have watched in this country as hundreds of thousands of people died in the US alone from a global pandemic, as Black and Brown people are still being murdered at alarming numbers by those who say they just want to protect us, as transgender youth are being villainized and their parents being taken to jail just for providing medical care to them, as gay and transgender youth are being told they cannot exist in schools, as so many schools work tirelessly to erase history and views they do not agree with, and now as safe and legal access to reproductive health care for 50% of the population is taken away. As I struggle to put these words together, I oscillate between rage, grief, and an overwhelming sadness. I look at my children and think of all the children in this country with the sad realization they will likely have shorter lives than ours and whose lives will be filled with much greater fear. I fight against the tide of hopelessness that looks to consume me. I dig deep as I possibly can to find the courage to fight harder and louder than ever before. I am not a person who is comfortable within a crowd of protesters, though I surely hope this is something I can overcome someday. Instead, I turn to giving as much money as I can to those who have the superpower of organizing people and fighting legislation. I seek to find those who are much better at putting words together than I am to lift their voices up across social media and this podcast. Yet I still feel that is not enough. More. I must find more courage. Thus, I am left with the only other thing I have left to offer, and that is my story. I, Katie Freeman, have known I was gay since I was 6 years old and had a crush on Christy in my kindergarten class. I have also been aware since before then that my orientation was not acceptable to my family of origin. Thus, my childhood and into my early 20s was spent desperately trying to pray the gay away and finding myself in dangerous situations with men. My freshman year of college, I was sexually assaulted by a well-known man on campus. When I reported it to the campus police, even though it was clear he had done this many times before, I was told there was no use in pressing charges. Even though charges were not pressed, I still went through the very demeaning and shameful process of talking to a medical professional about the incident and having my body again be touched in ways against my will. I wish I could tell you that was the last time I was assaulted. It was not. I was assaulted one more time during my undergrad years by a trusted staff member leading a group of sexual assault survivors. That was after I had trusted that person enough to share with them about my sexual orientation. Here again, I wish I could say that was the last assault. It was not. I would be assaulted one more time in my life by someone I considered a very close friend. I have worked hard to get from victim to survivor. I have worked hard to love myself for exactly the person I was meant to be. With this has come trust in my body and trust in what my body is telling me. Living with and through sexual assault and fears and beliefs from my family of origin about my sexual orientation almost killed me. It brought me to the point of attempting to take my own life. I share this not for pity, not so you can admire my courage. I share this because I am one of the lucky ones. I am still here. I turned 40 last year, and I have a wife and 2 kids that I love so deeply and that love me deeper than I ever imagined was possible in my 20s. I get to live this life in part because lawmakers and communities were not able to fully villainize me. I get to live this life because I knew if one of those assaults had managed to conceive a child, I could seek out safe healthcare. That is not the case for our children. That is not the case for my children. I also share this to make it more personal because it is personal. Maybe you don't know anyone who is LGBTQIA+, or anyone who is a survivor of sexual assault. Well, now you do. or like guests I have had on the podcast, guests who have a different skin tone than you, a different gender identity than you, or a different sexual orientation than you. Though we all may be someone you don't personally see on a daily basis, we are real. And like you, we have emotions and opinions. We wear clothes, go grocery shopping, drive vehicles, have a crazy aunt or uncle. Trust me when I say we are all more alike than we are different. So even if any of these things that are happening in the past 2 years do not personally affect you, they affect someone you know, someone's story you have learned. This is our fight, and one that will take all of us to win. There are ways you can help with this fight. There are protests taking place all over the country you can join. There's also the Mother's Day strike. This is where, if you are able, you stay home from work for the full week between May 8th and 15th. Or you can also choose to not spend any money between the 8th and the 15th as another way to strike. You can look up the closest Planned Parenthood or go to their website and find ways to help. I and other creators will continue to share ways to fight against this ruling, as well as other injustices over the next several weeks and months. Please fight for all those who continue to be oppressed as that number continues to grow. On the podcast, we will be striking for the week of May 8th to the 15th, and there will be no new episodes. Thank you. I love you. Katie.